सर जनरेटिव एआई मॉडल का डिप्लॉयमेंट कैसे होता है? लेट्स गो.
On your screen is a RAG-based architecture, and let's try to understand how do we deploy such kind of a generative application on AWS. Now, if you understand this architecture, we have this PDF documents chunked down, getting converted into embedding, storing this embedding somewhere in a vector database or a vector index. Finally, we have a front-end UI where the user is asking a question. The questions are also being converted into vectors. You are basically matching this vector embedding with your vector embedding stored in your vector database. Then eventually you are calling the large language model. The LLM is basically giving you the chat completion output, and in your UI you are getting your output. Now, how do we deploy such application in AWS? Before that, let's try to understand what components are we going to use. So for storage of PDF, you can eventually use AWS S3. That means all of your PDF documents or any kind of document used in this application can be stored in AWS S3. Secondly, your large language models can basically sit on AWS Bedrock. You can directly call Bedrock APIs for any kind of Bedrock APIs for dealing with your LLM activities. As part of your vector embeddings, you can either store it on AWS S3 Vector, or you can use a third-party application, let's say Pinecone, as a vector index serving. Right now, imagine this is basically your application. Your front end can be developed in any kind of framework. In your front end, when the user is asking a question, here basically you are going to trigger your Python notebook. So your Python notebook eventually needs to be a AWS Lambda function, right? When the Python notebook is invoked, you're basically calling your S3 bucket, creating the embedding, storing them in your vector databases. From the user input, you are also converting them into vector embeddings. Then you are doing a matching, internally calling to the AWS Bedrock APIs and getting the response, and finally the user is able to get the output. So that's one of the ways of deploying an application on AWS. If you're interested in any other way, let me know.